When I first started researching this case, I thought I'd heard it all. I mean, I've covered some pretty dark stuff on this channel, but this one stuck with me in a way that few cases do. And I think what makes it so haunting isn't just the horror of what happened, but the absolute devastation it left in its wake. The ripples of evil that spread out from one night in Darlington and destroyed so many lives. So let me take you back to April 1998 to a small town in northeast England called Darlington. And let me tell you about Julie Patterson. Julie's life had never been easy. When she was just a baby, her mother died of a brain tumor, leaving her and her 3-year-old brother Michael to be raised by their father. By the time she reached 32, she had 4 children of her own, though she'd lost custody of 3 of them. She shared her youngest child with her boyfriend, Alan Taylor. Now Julie struggled. She dealt with depression throughout her life. And like a lot of people dealing with that kind of pain, she self-medicated with alcohol and Valium. Alan knew all of this about her. He knew her patterns, her habits. He knew that sometimes Julie would go to a pub in Darlington and not come home for a few days. It had happened before. Sometimes she'd be gone for nearly a week. So when Julie left for a pub one day in April and didn't come home the next day, Alan didn't panic immediately. He figured it was just Julie being Julie. Another few days would go by and she'd come walking through the door with some story about where she'd been. But then something happened that was out of the ordinary. Julie failed to show up to an appointment to visit her eldest daughter. And that was something Julie would never do. No matter how deep in her depression she was, no matter how drunk she got, she never missed those visits with her daughter. Never. That's when Alan knew something was terribly, terribly wrong. He started searching. He checked their local neighborhood, hit up all the pubs Julie frequented, called every friend and family member he could think of. Nobody had seen her. Nobody had heard from her. So he did what he had to do. He called the Darlington police and reported Julie missing. Now, because Julie had already been missing for several days at this point, police took it seriously. They immediately started searching local parks, woodlands, rivers, ponds, anywhere a body might turn up. But days went by, and there was still no sign of Julie Patterson. Then came May 16th, 1998. A police dog was being walked along a rarely traveled footpath when it picked up a scent near a fence, a human scent. The dog handler figured that the property on the other side of the fence was abandoned because it looked completely dilapidated and the yard looked overgrown and ignored. So he entered the garden. But the property wasn't abandoned. A woman came out of the house asking what he was doing there. When he explained about the scent his dog had picked up, she pointed toward the edge of the garden and told him there was a garbage bag beneath a shrub. She said some boys had thrown it over the fence several days before. She'd assumed it contained a dead dog because it had started to smell. The officer opened the bag. It wasn't a dog. The smell of decomposition hit him immediately, and he knew this was human remains. A forensic examination confirmed what he feared. It was Julie Patterson. But it wasn't all of her. The bag contained only her torso, both legs, both arms, her head, all missing. Now here's where this story takes a turn that's almost hard to believe. Before the news of Julie's death even hit the newspapers, a man named David Harker was in a local pub, bragging to his friends that he had killed a girl called Julie. But here's the thing. 24-year-old David Harker was known for telling tall tales. He was a guy who loved attention, loved shocking people. So when he was drunk in a pub talking about killing someone, his friends just rolled their eyes and figured it was another one of his stories. Nobody took him seriously. Let me tell you a bit about Harker, because understanding who he was helps explain how he could do what he did. Harker had lived his entire life in northeast England and had been in trouble from an early age. As a boy, he tortured and mutilated small animals. Always a massive red flag, right? At 16, he attacked 2 men and their dog, killing the dog in the process. He was sent to a young offenders institution, but only briefly. But here's what's so chilling about Harker. He had 2 completely different sides. To most of his friends and acquaintances, he seemed like a good guy. He was charming, popular, outgoing. His good looks made him popular with women. In his late teens, he sang for a punk band called Downfall, and a lot of young kids in the punk rock scene looked up to him. He had the names of his favorite punk bands, Disorder and Subhumans, tattooed on the sides of his shaved head. He spoke out against racists and sex offenders. He came across as polite and respectful. On the surface, he seemed like someone you'd want to be friends with. But then his girlfriend, the mother of his 4-year-old son, left him. And something in Harker broke. He fell into a deep depression. His drinking increased. He became belligerent and angry. His anger issues got him banned from multiple pubs around town. On one occasion, he got so angry he put his fist through a pub window. There was something else about Harker that's incredibly disturbing. He was obsessed with true crime. He read every book about serial killers he could get his hands on. And he would tell his friends that he would make a great serial killer because he knew so much about how to not get caught. He even had a nickname for himself, Devilman. Harker bragged to no less than 28 different friends that he had killed a girl named Julie. 28 people heard him say this, but because he was usually drunk when he said it and because he was known for making up wild stories, nobody believed him. But then the discovery of Julie's torso hit the newspapers, and suddenly, his friends started to reconsider. The evening after the news was released, several of his best friends got together and speculated about the possibilities. They read the newspaper article over and over. Could he have actually been telling the truth this whole time? Was he really capable of that level of violence? That night, one of Harker's best friends walked into a Darlington police station and told them about Harker's boasts. Now here's a stroke of luck for the investigation. Just days before his friends went to police, Harker had been arrested on a robbery charge. He was awaiting trial at a bail hostel. So when detectives got this tip, Harker was already in custody. They obtained a warrant and searched his apartment. And what they found? It was immediately obvious that his friends were right. The apartment walls and floor were literally covered in dark red dried blood. It was clear that he had killed Julie right there in his apartment. And the most disturbing part? He made no attempt whatsoever to clean the crime scene. None. Bloody drag marks led from the hallway near the stairs to the kitchen. The kitchen had several large hooks attached to the ceiling, and the whole place smelled dank and musky. The basement was even bloodier than the main level. The forensic team matched the blood to Julie Patterson. Clothes found in the basement belonged to Julie. The apartment itself was stark and messy. On the walls, Harker had scribbled macabre lyrics to his favorite heavy metal songs. The floor was barely visible through a layer of garbage and beer cans. His bedroom contained only an old mattress on the floor surrounded by various porn magazines. On his bookshelf, police found several books about serial killers, a book about how to survive in prison, and another on how to dodge questions during a police interview. The evidence was overwhelming. Police arrested Harker at the bail hostel. During questioning, he initially denied killing Julie despite everything, despite the blood evidence, despite his apartment looking like a slaughterhouse, despite the statements from his friends. But eventually, he confessed. And what he told detectives, it's absolutely horrifying. Harker said that he and Julie had met one evening in April at a pub in Darlington. After a night of drinking, he charmed his way into getting her back to his apartment. Once there, they had consensual sex. But in the middle of it, and I want you to really think about how disturbing this is, he claimed he got bored and strangled her with one of her own stockings. As her body lay there on the mattress, he had sex with her corpse. The next day, he cut a chunk of flesh from her thigh using a kitchen knife. He placed it in a pan with garlic, pasta, and cheese, and he ate it. He then dragged her body to the basement where he wiped it down with bleach and kept her for several weeks. Using a saw, he cut off her head, her arms, and her legs. Detectives knew what he did with the torso. They'd found it in that garbage bag. But Harker refused to say what he did with the head, arms, and legs. He wouldn't tell them. And to this day, those body parts have never been found. During interviews with psychiatrists, Harker said something that gives you real insight into his twisted mind. He said, "People like me don't come from those films. Those films come from people like me." He told them that his ambition was to become Britain's youngest and most notorious serial killer. But he was destined to get caught because he couldn't help but boast about what he'd done. His ego, his need for attention, it's what brought him down. David Harker pleaded guilty to manslaughter on grounds of diminished responsibility. The sentence was essentially the same as a murder charge: life imprisonment with eligibility for parole in 14 years. At his sentencing, one of the psychiatrists who analyzed Harker said something chilling. He said that Harker was pure evil and that no hospital treatment could help him. He suffered from multiple mental disorders, but putting him in a mental institution would be a waste of time. The psychiatrist determined that Harker was in the top 4% of Britain's most disturbed men. So instead of a mental hospital, he was sent to a high-security prison. At sentencing, the judge told Harker, "You are an evil and exceptionally dangerous man. You killed her in the most terrible circumstances and dismembered her body. You glorified in her death and the manner of her death. I have no doubt that given the slightest opportunity, you will kill again." But the horror of this case doesn't end with Harker's imprisonment. In fact, in some ways, that's where the real tragedy begins. Even in prison, Harker basked in his depravity. Despite Julie's family's desperate requests, he refused to tell them what he had done with the rest of her body. He wanted them to suffer. He fed off their pain. Freddie Newman, the father of 2 of Julie's children, sent letters to Harker in prison trying to get answers, and Harker's response: "It's one of the most evil things I've ever read." He wrote back, "It's always good to know that people are thinking of me, especially those who suffer because of my actions. You are correct when you speak of decency. I have none. I have no inhibitions, remorse, or regret, and therefore care not one bit if your wife has a full body burial or not. I hope you are happy in the knowledge that you don't suffer alone in your loss. Your wife was not the first or the last person I killed." He continued, "You ask why I have done this evil thing. Well, I could intellectualize endlessly about murder, mutilation, decapitation, and cannibalism, but a man of your intellect wouldn't be able to grasp any of it. So to give you something you could understand, I killed all the people I did because I enjoyed it. Do you hate the evil man who chopped up and ate your wife? I am not evil, Mr. Newman, but I am a monster. Don't bother writing to me again, or I will show you terror unbound. I do have your address now." Goodbye, Mr. Newman. Freddie Newman never recovered from Julie's death. The loss consumed him, and in 2006, he committed suicide. Alan Taylor, Julie's partner at the time of her death and the father of her youngest child, suffered just as much. The loss consumed him too. Taylor became obsessed with trying to find the missing parts of Julie's body. He spent years digging holes in the ground all over Darlington, desperately searching for any trace of her. He would often weep over her gravesite and say, "How can she be at rest? She's not even here." And then, like Freddie Newman, Alan Taylor took an extreme measure. In 2006, in an alcoholic rage, he strangled his best friend, John Morrison, with a belt. When police asked him why he'd killed his best friend, Taylor told them that he wanted to commit a crime of the same level as Harker. He claimed that his alcoholism and post-traumatic stress disorder since Julie's death had left him a broken man. He felt that his only option was to be sent to the same prison as Harker, so he could get his revenge. But at his sentencing, the judge realized what Taylor was trying to do, so he sent him to a different prison, away from Harker. Taylor was sentenced to life in prison, and his hopes of ever finding Julie's remains were gone. 3 months into his prison sentence, Alan Taylor committed suicide in his cell. Think about that for a moment. One Act of Evil by David Harker didn't just take Julie's life. It destroyed Freddie Newman. It destroyed Alan Taylor. It shattered Julie's children. It left a wake of devastation that's still being felt today. 9 years after the murder, the Darlington Police Chief Superintendent who worked the case made one last-ditch effort before his retirement. He visited Harker's prison with hopes of getting him to finally tell them what he did with Julie's missing body parts. Harker refused to even see him. He told prison guards, "If anyone from the Durham Constabulary comes to see me, I will tell them to piss off." It's been more than 20 years since Julie's murder now. Her family still struggles with the loss. They still don't have all of her remains. They still don't have the closure that could come from giving her a complete burial. And David Harker? He's still in prison, still refusing to give Julie's family the peace they desperately need. This case haunts me not just because of the brutality of what Harker did, but because of the lasting damage his evil caused. 2 more men dead, men who were destroyed by the loss of Julie, children who grew up without a mother, and without the fathers who couldn't survive her loss, a family that still doesn't have all of their loved ones' remains. Evil doesn't just take one life. It spreads like poison, contaminating everything it touches. And in Darlington, that poison is still being felt today.